This video is to help you with task 2 for the World Language Handbook. So to go over the basics, you want to make sure that you read the task 2 instructions in your handbook. Those will vary from handbook to handbook what pages they're on. You also want to make sure that you read the specifications chart in your handbook for task 2, because this tells you what files you need. Task 2 is pretty easy for most people, but you want to make sure that your files stay within the amount of time that you're allowed to have for each clip. You also want to make sure that you print and look at the exemplar for the commentary for task 2 in your course. You want to make sure that you're looking at the amount of depth and detail that is really required for this. And there are 2 parts to task 2. There are the video clips that you're going to choose. For the video clips, your instructor is not allowed to help you choose these. These are EdTPA rules. It is considered cheating, and we are not allowed to help you choose which clips you're going to use. So you want to make sure that you really read the directions carefully for what you're supposed to have in each video clip, and we'll go through that. And then the second part is going to be your commentary. And for this, it's going to be similar to task 1, where you'll write about your choices that you made and give examples from the video of when it shows that. And there are 5 rubrics for this task as well, so you want to check your handbook to make sure that you are meeting the level 3, level 4, or level 5 criteria for each rubric. Something that you want to make sure that you do right away, if you haven't already done it during task 1, is you need to obtain permission to record students. You may not, under any circumstances, record a student who does not have their parental permission to be recorded. You need to have at least 4 students for EdTPA to give you back the form, and you should not have on video any student whose parent says no or does not get you the form. So you want to make sure that you get those forms in right away. You'll find the form that we use on your Blackboard course. For these videos, you want to make sure that you adjust the camera angle. If there are any students who did not give you the permission slip so that we don't see them on camera, they can still be in class, but you can't see them or hear them. For this section, you will choose either 1 or 2 video clips. Together, they cannot be more than 15 minutes. They also cannot be less than 3 minutes. So you want to make sure you choose those accordingly. So you can have one that's 10 minutes and one that's 5 minutes. You can have one that's, 15 minutes, that's fine, but you want to make sure you don't go over. For the video clips, there are some things that should be included in every video clip and is not specific to one clip or the other. The first of these is that you need to have students using academic language and the academic language function that you mentioned in your lesson plan. So we need to see students actually using this vocabulary, using this language function. The second thing is that you have to demonstrate mutual respect and rapport with students. You have to show that you have a positive environment and a good relationship with your students. You also need to give students a chance to express varied perspectives. It's important that you show that you're accepting and you can talk about different perspectives within your class. The third thing is that you want to demonstrate responsiveness to student-specific and varied learning needs. This means giving feedback, but it also means the changes and accommodations that you put into your lesson plans for students who are either struggling, students who are ahead of class, students who have IEPs for whatever reason. You need to show that you are responsive in making them successful in class. Next, you have to show that students can make the link between prior learning, what they've learned before, and the current lesson. It's not enough for you to just say what the link is. You want to have students making that connection. The next thing is that you want to have a connection with students' personal, cultural, and community assets. So you need to show how the lesson is connected to students and is interesting for students because it connects to their personal life, their cultural background, something about their community. And then lastly, you need to show how you deepen student learning, because this is the whole point of a lesson. You need to show how you helped students to deepen their learning by prompting them for a response, having them respond, and then you building on their response to have them try again and to have them do something better, deeper, and deepening their learning in some way. The first few things you need to have in your video clips is you need to show students communicating in the target language in a meaningful, authentic cultural context. So you need to have students speaking in that language in some kind of meaningful activity that is culturally appropriate. You also need to have students practicing interpretation or understanding the language. And you need to have students practicing either interpersonal communication, so conversing with someone, having a conversation, or presenting something. You want to make sure this is not just question and answer. That is not presenting, and that is not interpersonal communication. So either discussion and conversation or presenting. The other things you need to have in your video clips is you need to make a clear connection between your language form and your language function. So in other words, you need to connect what words you're teaching and the grammar they're using to why and when they're using it. So you want to make sure that you have a clear connection between the forms that they're supposed to be using and the function of them. And then lastly, you need to make sure that there's some kind of connection between your language tasks and some kind of cultural practice or perspective. So it has to be culturally relevant, and it has to show some kind of cultural practice or perspective by having these students do this. There are a few logistical things you need to remember when you're recording. The first thing is you have to make sure that your camera shows you and your students. It has to show both you and your students. So you want to think about where in the room your camera needs to be to do that. Secondly, everybody has to be able to be seen and heard. I know this can be tough in schools, but again, you want to make sure that you practice so that you can figure out where it needs to go and how you need to either close your door or figure out how students can be heard. The third thing is your camera should be running the entire lesson. You cannot choose a clip that has a cut in the middle. So for your best chance of finding the however many minutes you need for your clip, you should run the camera the entire lesson. It will help give you more options at the end. The next issue is you want to make sure that you're absolutely practicing this ahead of time. Students have run into complications and things happen in schools, so you want to make sure that you practice so that you're not stressed out about how to film while you're also focusing on doing your best teaching for this. And lastly, again, you cannot edit in the middle of a clip. You can only choose the start and end of a clip. You can choose where that happens during your lesson, but you cannot edit in the middle. So that's why you want to have the camera running the entire time. When you're choosing the video clips that you want to use for task 2, you should start by printing out your instructional commentary questions while you have the video in front of you and while you're watching it. This will help you know what you're looking for. And then once you know what you're looking for in your video, you want to mark down on a piece of paper and write down the timestamp of when it is in the video when you see something good. So when you see something good that you think you might want to include, you want to make sure you write down when that happens and just a short little description, a couple words about what you are writing that down for. What is good about that particular clip or moment. And then once you're at the end of that video, then you want to look back over your notes and you want to look at the amount of time that you have, whether it's 10, 15, or 20 minutes, and you want to look at where you have the most amount of those good moments and see if you can find a clip that has the most of what you're looking for and what you need. And that's how you're going to know when you have a good video clip. And that'll mean that you're ready to add it to your commentary responses. For your instructional commentary, you want to make sure that you reread the pages in the handbook that talk about what you need for this. The commentary must be 6 pages. 6 pages is the limit, and you should be writing the whole space. You should be filling that. You have to write in the template, and you have to write between the brackets that they give you. Make sure to not delete any of the directions. You want to also make sure that you reference within your commentary the timestamps that you recorded while you were looking for a clip. So when you're explaining your answer, you need to tell us exactly when that happened within your specific video. So you want to give time clips pretty often. to explain all of your answers. But you also want to make sure that you're explaining your answers and why that fulfills the criteria. And then lastly, you need to have some citations in here. You need to back up your instruction with research. I recommend looking back at the research from previous classes and looking back at previous textbooks. Your citations are going to be at the very end of your commentary. There's not a specific spot for them, just at the very end. And these do not count towards your page total, so you don't have to worry about that. But you want to make sure that you look at question 5B, because that will ask you for citations. You need to have at least 2 of them. And again, they need to be trustworthy and well-established sources. You're not using Teachers Pay Teachers or another teacher website. You want to make sure you really look for research. Finally, when all of these parts are complete, you want to make sure you just reread the specifications page to make sure you've met all of the criteria that's in your handbook. You want to make sure that you look at each of the rubrics for this task to make sure that your work looks like a level 3, at least a level 4, even better. And the rubric progression guide can help you with this. That's on your Blackboard course as well. It breaks down exactly what the difference is for a scorer between a 3 that's passing and a 2 that is not passing. And lastly, just make sure everything is complete. You will submit both of these together. You're going to submit your clips and your commentary together to your professor.